Hey everybody, I am David Mihal, and I'm here with my mom. Hey Mom.
Hey David.
How you doing?
Very well.
We are here in Tunisia on our Thanksgiving trip. How you liking Tunisia?
I am loving Tunisia. Really loving it.
Tunisia has been fun. Tomorrow's
Great trip.
great trip. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So yeah, always good to hang out with you guys. And yeah, thought it'd be fun to sit down and talk a little bit about crypto. Funny thing about Tunisia was, you're asking me like how long have I been in crypto? I remember Tunisia was kind of the beginning of my crypto journey. It was like Lviv, Ukraine, when I got this epiphany that I should be working in crypto, and then it was a couple weeks later, that I was in Tunisia. And so I remember this being like kind of a formative year. I remember sitting in Tunis reading like my first tutorial, I think, about Solidity and developing on Ethereum and stuff. So
Interesting. Full circle.
full circle all these years later.
Yeah.
And well, maybe this is the beginning of your crypto journey. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to, while we're together, to chat about crypto, because, I mean, are you a crypto expert? Would you say you're into crypto?
I don't think I'm into crypto, but I'm more knowledgeable about crypto than most everyone I know my age. And of course that comes from this being your career and your passion.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned a lot about it and certainly know more than everyone my age.
That's my thoughts as well, is that
Yeah.
you probably know, especially people in your age group, probably more than 99 point something, pretty high
Absolutely.
percent about it.
Yes.
And yes, what motivated you to, why do you know so much about crypto? You said because of me, because you're just interested in my...
Yes, clearly this is your passion and your career, and I want to understand it as best that I can. And it's in the news all the time, and it's interesting, and I've learned to appreciate the benefits.
Not always... News coverage isn't always the best, but
it's in the news.
it is in the news. It is definitely something top of mind, especially in the past couple of years. When I got into it, it wasn't as much in the
Correct.
news. These days, unfortunately, for some not great reasons.
But what I understand about all of it, and what I tell people about it, is it's not going away. It's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever happens, crypto is here to stay.
Yep, I certainly think so. When you're telling people about it, I imagine you're somewhat of the authority at. For context, you live in a great community full of a bunch of other retired people.
Yes.
Do you feel you're a bit of an authority on crypto there?
Yeah, if it comes up in conversation, people are really interested sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and often they'll say, "Oh, I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it."
Yeah.
Which is fine, and often they're curious and they turn to me as an authority, and I'm far from an authority, but I know more than they do.
Mm-hmm. What do you think their interest is? Are they interested in investing? Or are they interested in the technology? Do they just want to know what the hell they're hearing about on the news?
I think they're curious. I think they're also skeptics because they don't understand it. It's like, this is fake money. This isn't real. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to it. I don't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so they want to stay away from it. But there's a curiosity sometimes.
Yeah. You feel that skepticism is a pretty prevalent...
I do. I think not with everybody. Some are, have family members who are invested, and they're very, very curious to understand more, mm-hmm. and then they turn to me, mm-hmm. As the person they can talk to about it.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the core part of that skepticism is? What makes them so skeptical, so turned off? I mean, I think there's often skepticism about new technology. I think we've watched some of those clips of the Today Show,
right,
in the 90s, when they're like, what is this internet thing for?
Nobody will ever need a computer in their home.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, there's some context. You don't have a technical background, do you?
No, well, not a technical background, but I worked in the for software companies, mm-hmm. and for digital equipment corporations, so hardware companies, software companies.
I mentioned that because digital equipment, that was
Ken Olsen.
What was Ken Olsen's famous quote?
Ken Olsen was the president of Digital Equipment, and I still believe Digital Equipment had a really great technology of distributed processing for microcomputers as opposed to mainframes, or mini computers versus mainframes. And one of his famous quotes is, nobody will ever need a computer in their home.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he was wrong about that.
Mm-hmm. You do sound like you have a bit of technical background. You know, they have good distributed system. It's a little over my head, I think, because the technology has shifted a bit, but I understood those words. But so apparently even the CEO of a tech corporation had some skepticism about people are going to need computers in their homes.
Yes, in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. Yes, that was the CEO of a huge technology technology hardware, software.
So not the uninformed person, someone who's very informed about technology but was still skeptical. Yeah.
Yes, very much. So I think people are intimidated by what they don't know.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that Ken Olsen quote Ken Olsen?
Ken Olsen.
Yeah, that quote reminds me of like some of the people you see in finance, like Jamie Dimon. I'm sure there's some other good examples. People who are, experts in finance who are going, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is total crap. It's a Ponzi scam, things like that. People you would think understand, and plenty of people in technology as well.
Yes.
That show this, kind of say, what to me feels like the same things Ken Olsen was saying about personal computers. He was going, nobody needs a computer in their home, and
there's no need for cryptocurrency.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying it's a total scam, it's a Ponzi, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of like skepticism from your friends. So it sounds like the skepticism is around just mostly like not understanding like Bitcoin. It sounds like probably.
Yes, certainly about Bitcoin, about all of cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin, they don't see a functionality to its usefulness.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, they probably wouldn't know how to acquire it,
mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't know how to use it,
mm-hmm.
so they don't have interest, and they have no need at that point in their retired years.
I mean, I think there's some value in that, like, if they have no need for it, if they don't think it's valuable, I'm certainly not one of those people that's like, everybody needs to own Bitcoin, everyone needs to buy it if you're happy or comfortable, especially in later stages of your life where I see crypto in some sense. Crypto fits in many parts of my life, and some of it is I go, well, long term, like I'm investing for my future.
Right.
That I expect to still be holding my Bitcoin and my ETH when I'm retired.
Right.
If you're closer to retirement, you don't have maybe as much skepticism around the US dollar as some people in our industry do.
Yes. But in the heyday of crypto, when it was going up, there were a handful of people who were knowledgeable enough and invested enough to do very well and were excited about. Yeah. They had the disposable income that they could make those speculative investments.
Do you think that those people just kind of put money into Bitcoin or whatever without, how much do you think the people who invested, who maybe have done well in crypto, do you think they understood it? Do you think they understood it better or worse than you do?
Some more and some quite less. When the plumber tells me about his investments in lots of...
What did the plumber invest in?
Solana, I believe. I'm trying to think.
What I remember was that you called and you told me that the plumber regularly invested half his paycheck into Cardano.
Cardano, that was it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. His sister had done very well, and he took half of his money.
I thought that was... We don't need to go down the Cardano rabbit hole, but I thought that was hilarious that...
That's the other side of people investing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like one of the main skepticisms I hear from a lot of people, and I imagine a lot of people is that it's not backed by anything, right? Mm-hmm. This is a coin that's just kind of comes from thin air. Does that sound right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Do you... the way I think a lot of people in crypto would respond is, asking about other, what is the US dollar backed by? Things like that. How do you think you or some of those people would respond to, that type of argument?
Well, I think they feel comfortable having the U.S. government backing the American dollar. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're saying there's nothing backing Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very speculative and volatile, and a very risky investment and a very risky asset to be involved with.
Well, here's one question. I know your community. Would you say that people are politically involved in your
Yes.
community?
Yes.
They pay attention to
Yes.
U.S. politics, what's going on there? Do you?
Yes, I do very much.
Occasionally. I know it's a bit polarized.
Yes.
But in general, across those people, do you think people have a strong confidence in the U.S. government?
Probably not these days. These are challenging times, and it is but very, very polarized.
Yeah, but even both sides of that spectrum.
That's right.
You know,
That's
the
right.
left and the right. To me, I would imagine, it feels there's like very low confidence in the system in general.
Yes.
In the systems of government, in the institutions.
Yes.
And that's not just my generation. You think there's.
Yes.
I do think, I would say, your generation might have a bit more trust in the institutions than mine. You think that's fair? Because the system has worked for
Yes.
most of your life, and when you hear people talking about boomers,
Yes.
you know, and that boomers have lived through this amazing
Yes.
period of history, that it's been relatively easy to, you know, to buy a house, to have financial freedom. It's been a good, you know, the time of U.S. history that you've lived through has been a generally pretty good period, right?
Yes, and I would say everybody where I live enjoys the benefits of their their lifetime of work with Social Security and Medicare. Will that be available for you? Nobody knows. But in that regard, they're very happy with what the government has done for them.
Yeah. But still, at this point, the skepticism's starting to show up, a bit less trust.
Yes, that's
in the
true.
system.
Yes.
In the system. So, do you think, you know, how do you think those people feel about, you know, say the U.S. dollar being controlled by a organization that they don't have a lot of? They seem to have trust in the U.S. dollar, but not a lot of trust in the U.S. federal government, maybe the U.S. Federal Reserve. I don't know if they know much about the U.S. Federal Reserve, but or the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah, I don't think they think about that. I think the dollar has always been there, and it's been pretty stable.
Yeah, gotcha. I guess the other thing that I would wonder about how people think, I think a lot of people go down the rabbit hole of, you know, we call Bitcoin a cryptocurrency. We call all these assets cryptocurrencies. I feel sometimes that can be almost a misleading term, because I think a lot of people get stuck on, if this is a currency, why does the price change? Why can I not spend it? You know, currency, I should be able to go somewhere.
Right.
Do you see, again, you understand Bitcoin a bit, do you see it as a currency? Do you think it's fair to label it that? Do you see it fitting somewhere else as a different type of asset?
I do see it as a currency. I know I can use it to buy things via PayPal. I know I can.
Have you ever? You own a bit of Bitcoin, correct?
Yes, I do. I never use it to purchase. It is for me an investment, and I know and understand its volatility, but I don't ever use it as a currency, and I explain it as a currency that can be used to buy things in certain circumstances, such as, I believe, Amazon and PayPal. And there are other circumstances that you can use it online to buy things. But it's more like a asset, like gold, that you would hold on to and have, and that price also has volatility, as we all understand.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I see it as an asset more than a currency.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it at the end in terms of the way I see the value of something like this. Because I would argue, you own Bitcoin, you've never spent it.
Correct.
I own Bitcoin, ETH, number of assets. I think I spent some Bitcoin, I remember in Barcelona back in, 2015. I bought a salad with Bitcoin. I thought that was kind of cool. I think that might have been, I also bought something online once with Bitcoin. So I think maybe twice in my life, as someone invested in Bitcoin, that I've spent Bitcoin on a product, on a physical thing. So you know, if people aren't using Bitcoin or ETH as, they're not spending it on things. That's why I was asking, like, do you see it as a currency if people aren't spending it as a currency?
Generally not. I think it's more like gold.
Yeah.
But it is a currency more than some other cryptocurrencies. It is a currency.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a gold is a good analogy.
Yeah. Do you know people who own gold? You don't own any gold, do you?
No, I do not own any gold.
Physical or?
No, just jewelry.
Just jewelry? Well,
yeah.
That's something.
And not a lot.
But imagine you know some people who might own, people are investing, they're investing for their retirement. Some of them might own gold.
Yeah, they might own shares in gold.
Gold ETFs?
Yeah, gold mining companies. I think we did at one point.
A gold mining company?
Yeah, that my dad bought it a long time ago.
Oh.
A long time ago. I think it became nothing. But he did buy shares in a gold mining company in Canada. But no, I don't know anybody who owns blocks of gold.
Oh, but you know what a gold ETF is? You go it's like a gold stock. When you go in your Robinhood, E-Trade, whatever account, your investment, your retirement account, if you buy gold and you're not taking physical bars of gold, you're buying a asset backed by gold.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine some people might have that.
None that I know of, but it certainly is possible with their investment scheme.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, Bitcoin often is called digital gold. A lot of Bitcoin proponents would call it that. To me, that seems like a metaphor that makes the most sense for something like Bitcoin. What are your thoughts about if you had to buy Bitcoin or gold? How would you kind of compare the benefits of those against each other? How would you weigh that investment decision?
Well, I'm not sure. Gold is volatile, or let's just say rather than volatile, it has varying values. It goes up, it goes down. I think Bitcoin probably has some more volatility to its price. It certainly has, of recent. So, they're both investments. I think Bitcoin may be a little more speculative.
Okay. I think that's fair. But if people were investing in this asset class in general, I guess that's why I was asking about gold. If someone you knew was investing in gold, what do you think their motivation would be for gold versus stocks, bonds?
Long-term investment of an asset that has value now and will always have value.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think it always has value? I mean,
because it's gold. It's gold.
It had value thousands of years ago, right?
Correct.
It's gonna have.
I think it will have value when that we have a Fort Knox in this country. Yeah. You know that it's being secured and it has value, or it wouldn't be secured as Fort Knox is.
Yeah, if you had to break down further, where does gold come from? I have some ideas about what are the properties of gold that make it actually why gold and not diamonds, right? Diamonds also have been, I imagine, valuable for a long time.
Yes.
Copper, things like that.
Right.
Why do you think gold is the asset that's kind of people don't really think about it, right? You're just well, gold's valuable because it's gold.
Right.
Do you have any intuition to why it is gold, why it's not diamonds? Or
I don't. I mean, I think at least in the United States, I think there has been gold in our country as a mineral, and I don't think there's diamonds. So that may be one reason, but otherwise I don't really know why it is the gold standard for that kind of an asset. Diamonds, I don't know a lot about diamonds, but it sounds like it could be similar.
So my understanding, and again, I'm not an expert on gold.
Yeah, and you have varying qualities of diamonds, and gold is pretty set. Gold is gold. If it's 14 karat, whatever it is.
That was actually the first point I was going to mention. Do we have a word for that? It's not a crypto specific word, but the fact that gold is gold. Do you know the word we use for it?
No.
Fungibility.
Yes, I've heard non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, that's funny that NFTs seem, have really put that word into
yes, that's the only way I know that word.
Because people hear of NFTs, they know what is an NFT, a non-fungible token. they still probably don't understand NFTs at that point, but at least they've heard the word fungible.
Right.
But yeah, so do you know what like fungibility means? No?
I don't.
Okay. So is it fungibility is the idea, let's see if I can give a good definition for it. The idea of something being kind of interchangeable within any unit. It's not necessarily binary, but with gold you can imagine if I have an ounce of gold, you know, a bar that's an ounce of gold, versus if I cut that in half, now I have 2 bars that are each a half of ounce of gold.
Mm-hmm.
They should be worth the same, right?
Yep.
I could melt it down, it takes a machine and stuff like that. I could melt it down together and make a new bar of gold. That's 1 ounce.
Yes.
That's fungible. Money as well. Like if you're, working in a store and you're selling something for $20,
right.
So one person comes in with a $20 bill, another person comes in with $21 bills.
Right.
You don't really care.
No. It's fungible.
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 Okay.
Yeah. Whereas, as you mentioned, diamonds are not.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
You got
Right, and so gold would be considered fungible.
Yeah. Again, everything is it's not binary. I think it's a spectrum.
Right.
You could maybe say, imagine bars of gold are stamped and categorized and stuff like that. And if you have some, gold that was linked to a robbery, maybe someone looks at this bar and they go, there's some system. But for the most part, you can melt it. You can make new gold. You can take earrings, jewelry, gold that's already been transformed. You can melt it down to something else. You can't quite do that with diamonds. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
And Bitcoin is fungible, right?
Right.
Most, again, some people might disagree on the details of it, but for the most part, a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin.
Yes.
No matter where it is in the world, no matter who holds it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's one of the attributes that people, see as valuable. Bitcoin, it's fungible, just like any money. I guess that's one way that makes it similar to a currency, almost more so than some minerals like diamonds, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I've heard about it's the verifiability. So this is one thing I heard about gold is that it's very easy to, or relatively easy to verify gold. There is some kind of test. You heard the thing where people bite a coin or something like that?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what the?
I don't think that's real. I don't.
The story that I had heard was that, you can imagine a long time ago when gold was more widespread in coins, you could, if you tried to make a fake gold coin out of, I don't know, what are the types of fake, like copper or, copper doesn't really look like gold. But
doesn't really look like gold.
I guess you could make a copper coin and gold plate it or something like that.
Exactly. You could certainly gold plate something.
Yeah. And that if you bite it, I think the idea was, gold is a soft
It's
metal.
soft, relatively.
Yeah. So I think the idea is that if you bite it and you can bend it a bit, if you can get your teeth into it, you can kind of tell, is this real gold or is this some gold alloy? Is this some other coin that's gold plated? Exactly. So, that's a very rudimentary type of verification. But if you're a business owner and you're worried about counterfeits, it'd be pretty easy to, you bite it, it's a little bit of a check against the gold. Nowadays, I think gold's verified with a mass spectrometer. You have an instrument that looks at actually the atomic makeup of the gold, and that's why how they derive, I guess, 24 karat gold and things like that. But you compare this to diamonds. You've seen the guy looking at diamonds with the little
clarity,
magnifying glass, trying to
color, clarity, all of those aspects.
Yeah, versus diamond versus cubic zirconium. I don't know how easy it is to tell those apart. Or a good diamond versus a less high quality one. So the fact that it's easy to verify, if I get some gold, is this real gold, right? That's relatively easy to verify. And Bitcoin is the same way, right?
A Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. Whatever the value is that day.
Yeah. The value aside, you can verify a Bitcoin. This is where we get into decentralization. I think some people lean too heavily on. They'll just throw. In crypto, we love decentralization. We talk about it all the time. Everything needs to be decentralized, and I think sometimes we forget to talk about why decentralization is a technical property. It's not really a goal itself. It's a means to an end. But one of the important things of decentralization is you can run a Bitcoin node on your computer, and if someone sends you Bitcoin, you can use your computer to check, is that Bitcoin a real Bitcoin? right? You don't need to trust a bank or a government or Google or, JP Morgan, like a bank, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a Bitcoin, I have it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real Bitcoin, easy to verify. Does that seem similar to, like, does the whole, like, idea of being able to verify something make sense and just...
Theoretically, it absolutely does. I mean, I think what you're saying, I'm taking as true, that a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, and if someone sends you a Bitcoin, there's no reason to really challenge it, question it. It doesn't work that way. It's all verified, as in the whole cryptocurrency, paradigm.
Mm-hmm. The
So,
blockchain.
on the blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
all the verifications of it. So I think
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense.
I guess we mentioned blockchain, and we do. I don't want to make this a very technical discussion, but you have a sense of what a blockchain is. I imagine a lot of people, people hear about Bitcoin, they kind of can get a sense of what it is, because Bitcoin is just like, well, it's like a digital money. They might be skeptical about it,
Right.
but at least they know it's like money that I can have on my phone. Blockchain, I imagine that's like a word that probably goes over a lot of people's head.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How would you explain
Um,
blockchain?
It's a technology, with the system of checks and balances at all times, as you're saying, verification. In order for any transaction to happen, there are computers all around the world who it's all transparent. Everybody can see every transaction that happens, and it gets verified numerous times by everybody, or it doesn't go through. So it's actually very secure, because there's all that verification, checks and balances at all times.
Yeah, I think you nailed that description pretty well, I think. That the blockchain is what allows, like, nobody to control Bitcoin, essentially, right?
Right. There is no one owner. Everybody has to agree to the process or the transaction for it to occur.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this is, I guess, like one of the last pillars to me of, like, why something like gold is useful, and you can tie that to, like, Bitcoin as well. Nobody created gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can mint new gold.
Mm-hmm.
You can mine it.
Right.
Mining it is like digging it out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so compare that to the US dollar, right? There's like one entity that controls the
Right.
US dollar, kind of.
They can make new money.
They can make new money, and that's true of basically any currency. Right?
Mm-hmm.
True of stocks. It's true of a lot of different types of assets, but gold is physical. You can't make more gold. You can find gold that nobody's found yet, but you can't make more gold, which gives it a level of scarcity, right?
Yes, that's right. Absolutely, and that there's value to that.
Mm-hmm. Somewhat, scarcity alone doesn't make something valuable, right? Like I can, especially in crypto, where like I can make a cryptocurrency that's very scarce,
Right.
but no one will think is valuable, right?
That is really true. That's a good example.
Yeah. So there's a bit more than just scarcity, and again, I think that's a trap that a lot of Bitcoiners fall into. Just go, scarcity is all there is, but scarcity is an important property of something being valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have, you said, why are rocks not valuable? I think there was a point when people would use rocks for currency, right?
I don't remember that, but
well,
I'm not that old, David.
I wasn't sure. But you can't use a rock as a currency, right? Because you just go pick them up off the ground.
Yes.
They're everywhere. Rocks are not very scarce.
No.
So gold is scarce. One thing I heard, it's, not only is it scarce, but it was very distributed around the world. You think of like, where does gold come from? Where it comes from everywhere, right?
I think you can get it, many countries and areas and locations around the world.
Yeah.
As opposed to like oil.
Yes, that's a great example. You can get gold in, California, famously, there was the gold rush there.
Right.
But also famously the Spanish when they came to South America, the Caribbean,
Right.
Spanish were, they're actually extracting so much gold from the New World that they inflated it a bit.
Yeah.
So that's a funny thing about like gold is that it still does have some market pressures. It still is volatile. The Spanish thought, they were so rich, and indeed they were quite rich, but they extracted so much gold, they flooded the market with it.
And it lost value.
Gold lost value. This, the Spanish Empire is long time ago.
Yeah.
But so the nice thing, so gold is scarce, and it's distributed kind of it's somewhat like an equal opportunity. Not equal opportunity as in every person can get access to it.
Right.
But Spain could go get it in Latin America. Settlers in the United States could go west and try to find gold there. Certainly there's parts of Asia. I think China had large gold reserves as well. Not familiar exactly where the gold came from, but pretty distributed across the world. So didn't give any single entity power, any single country or kingdom or empire. They weren't like the controller of gold. You mentioned oil.
Yeah.
Right. Oil is controlled by
a handful.
Saudi Arabia and the Gulf. Russia.
Texas.
Yeah. U.S. is a player in that market as well. Venezuela.
Yeah, Alaska, certainly. Canada.
We're hanging out here in Tunisia. Our neighbors over in Libya
have a lot of oil. And Tunisia does not.
Tunisia does not, as far as I know. Yeah, that might be one reason that it's actually a relatively. You've heard of, this is a bit of a tangent, but you've heard of the resource curse?
No.
Resource curse is the idea when think of all the countries that have a lot of oil, or the countries that have a lot of diamond, or that have a lot of uranium, or even like rare earth metals, things like that.
Right.
They tend to not be like the most stable, equal, prosperous countries, right? You think of in Saudi Arabia, Russia, Africa, places like the Congo. I think Congo is one of the most like resource-rich countries in the world. Angola, a lot of oil in Angola, and these countries tend to be unequal. So the idea of the resource curse is that there's, as a country, say you have all this access to like easy money, that tends to, the country can get all this money for free. They can spend enough to kind of keep their people happy, keep the people content. They can give them, I know in Turkmenistan, one of my favorite countries, I think gasoline was free. I don't think it is anymore, but for a while I think gasoline was free. They provided a lot of services. We were able to keep people
very rich.
Also, incredibly repressive dictatorship. It's like North Korea levels of dictatorship, but they could kind of take care of people. Same in the Gulf. A lot of these countries, the locals, the Saudis, Emiratis, things like that, they're pretty happy. They do pretty well. The government can take care of them because the government has all this free money. Compare that to a place like Singapore, right, or Estonia. Estonia is, I think, an interesting one. Estonia is a country that's, I think, less than 30 years old.
Yeah.
Basically, no natural resources. Tiny little country. There's 3 of them. 3 Baltic countries that are all similar countries. No resources. They've had to innovate. They've had to. They still want. The government wants to take care of the people. The people want to do well. They've become a bit of a tech country. Same thing you can see in places like Singapore, Israel, things like that. Places that tend to have the least resources oftentimes do quite well, which is an interesting kind of paradox.
Paradox from the resource curse.
Yeah, resource curse is what they're called. That was a bit divergent from all the crypto stuff, but Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You mine Bitcoin as well.
Right.
And again, I don't want to go down the mining rabbit hole, but Bitcoin can be created anywhere, right?
Right.
To mine, you need computer.
Yeah.
Nowadays you need like insane amounts of computer, lots of electricity, so it's actually, I think, become a bit less equal, but there's a lot of Bitcoin mining in the United States. A lot of the early adopters of Bitcoin, a lot of it was Western.
Yeah.
So a lot of Americans, Europeans, things like that could mine on their laptop back in like 2009, 2010. China was like the dominant country with mining. They have a lot of cheap electricity there.
Right.
They've banned mining, so now it's kind of not there as much, but a lot of Bitcoin came out of China, a lot out of the United States, a lot out of all around the world. For a while people were spinning up miners in their garages. As it became more electricity intensive, you saw it in places that had cheap electricity. So like Georgia and Kazakhstan both had North Carolina, they have cheap electricity there.
Near Asheville, I understand that they built this huge facility to mine Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and then when things changed, and it made a lot of noise, and the people weren't happy.
Because it made noise?
Yes, from the computers. Humming all the time.
That's interesting, because I would, as a crypto supporter, I often see a lot of things that, there's a lot of people who just kind of don't like cryptocurrency.
Right.
And they'll like raise a stink about like the noise of like the fans.
Yes.
When I imagine there's like a, probably not. Well, where
Airports.
what's that?
And this was out in the country.
There's airports. Airports incredibly. I've lived
Noise,
under
right.
flight paths. Those are incredibly noisy. You have across the United States coal generating power plants that put this
Right.
poison into the air that gives everybody cancer.
Yeah, I think the issue was it was quiet where they built this.
Okay.
And it was pretty rural, but
Yeah.
there are some people who live there.
That's fair. That's fair. We'll talk more about mining, I think, some other time. But the point was, Bitcoin was created everywhere. It wasn't like it's something that just empowered, just gave wealth to Americans, to Chinese, to wherever. And the blockchain itself also, because all those parties are kind of the ones controlling the network, everyone in the world that has an internet connection and
Has access.
and a reasonably priced computer, they can be part of the network. So, I think people feel confident that in the same way, gold is gold. If I have my gold in the United States and I take it to China, gold is gold. If I have to flee a country, a lot of stories of people in Venezuela. When people would leave Venezuela, actually the government would seize anything valuable you had. If you had a gold watch,
Right.
They would take it, gold jewelry, whatever. But
Banks.
if you manage to get the gold out of the country,
Right.
gold is gold.
Right. And you couldn't get your money out of the banks, but if you had Bitcoin, you were able to keep that.
Yeah. And that no country can shut that down. The cool thing was something like leaving Venezuela.
Yeah.
More recently, like leaving Russia for
Yes.
Ukraine or Russia, kind of different stories, but still a lot of people leaving both countries. A lot of them want to take their wealth with them. A lot of different reasons why that can be difficult, but you can, if you can get your Russian rubles or Ukrainian hryvnia into Bitcoin, you come to the West,
You still have it.
You can sell it and, you can buy euros with it, right?
Right.
So that your wealth can move anywhere easily, and it's just as accepted. If you take, again, Russian hryvnia, even aside from like the value of it, if you take a Russian hryvnia to the West, or here's a more interesting one. Do you know Tunisia does not allow currency exports?
Yes.
You did know this.
I do know you cannot take their currency out of the country.
Are you planning on taking any Tunisian dinars out of the country?
Of course not.
No?
I'm not.
You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't lie on a podcast, would you?
I've read that they don't want that to happen, and there's no need for me to take it.
I'm going to tell you, I have some, from my first trip here, I have some Tunisian dinars sitting in my house.
Is that right?
In my currency collection, yeah.
Okay, I have your currency collection at home too.
Okay.
I don't know.
I plan on taking some Tunisian dinars out of the country. We'll see if the government stops me.
Well, if they do, I hope they just take it.
Yeah, I think so.
And not throw you in jail.
But again, it's not that hard to take some souvenir currencies out of the country. But the more impactful side is, I don't think, and again, this is not something I know, that Tunisian dinars trade on the open currency markets like the dollars and the euros do.
Right.
If you get, if you're a rich Tunisian and you get a lot of Tunisian dinars in cash over to Europe, you might not be able to, I don't know if it's worthless. I'm sure you can do something, but it's not the same as taking my dollars to Europe and changing them for euros.
Right.
Bitcoin, because, there's no government that controls Bitcoin that says you cannot bring Bitcoin out of this country. Countries can impose rules, but if one country imposes rules, there's almost 200 other countries that have their own rules.
They have their own rules, yeah.
So that's why Bitcoin is, generally bought and sold everywhere unless there's like laws that prohibit it. And then even if there are laws, it's bought and sold on a black market, things like that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was interesting for me when I got into making some investments in cryptocurrency and buying Bitcoin, is went through Coinbase. And it took 2 weeks for my money from the American bank to be cleared via Coinbase to be able to buy my Bitcoin. And once I have my Bitcoin, I can transfer it, use it to buy something instantly. And that was a very frustrating part of seeing the way the American financial system worked and how so divergent it is from the cryptocurrency financial system.
That's a great point. So we've been talking a lot about like where, the similarities between Bitcoin and gold. Fungibility, verifiability. Thank you, Mom. And kind of neutrality. That's where kind of the decentralization of Bitcoin is similar to like the decentralization of gold.
Yep.
But I think what you've just mentioned is something where Bitcoin has improvements over gold, because if you have physical gold, you have a gold bar, you want to transfer it. We talked about like leaving Venezuela. I guess this ties back to those points. If you want to move some gold, how do you do it? You carry it, right?
You have to carry it.
You carry it, or you hire a company to
Right.
transport it.
That's
you know,
right.
if you have large amounts, there I think are companies that specialize in gold transport. They'll
Right.
get you an airplane and a bunch of
Or armored car.
cars and people with guns and things like that to move your Bitcoin from one country to another.
You move your gold.
Sorry, your gold from one country to another. With Bitcoin, you can send Bitcoin in
Instantly.
10 minutes, but
Okay.
Essentially, you sign a transaction. People have a pretty good sense that you've sent it instantly. To be sure that you've sent it takes a few minutes.
Okay.
But I think that is a significant improvement of Bitcoin over gold. I think that's fair.
Yes, very, very fair.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Cool. Can you think of any other benefits of Bitcoin over gold that you know of, or downsides, like places that gold is stronger? We've talked about volatility and things like that. I think what people would say about volatility is that's just because this is a novel young asset. That it'll approach gold levels over time.
Well, I think in watching, current events over the years, and you've watched how the government in Venezuela just really fell apart and the financial system fell apart. And we were in Colombia a few years ago, and so many Venezuelans were leaving. And in Colombia, you could buy artwork on the street, painted as a tourist souvenir on Venezuelan money, and I bought a wallet made of folded Venezuelan money. So the people who had money in banks, if they could get it, they couldn't, but even if they had it, it had no value anymore. That's why they were doing art on it. And if they had cryptocurrency, they would be able to leave Venezuela and still have their assets. And with the Ukrainian war with Russia, again, money was very scarce and hard to. There was this war going on, and it was hard to get money to the people who you were wanting to support. And you could do that easily with cryptocurrency transfers.
Yeah, that's a great point. I have, for anyone watching, some Venezuelan bolivars here. My friend Manu just gave me one of these in Colombia, a month or so ago, whenever all us crypto people got together. He's Venezuelan, and he was handing these out just as a example of what can happen to paper currency, as if us crypto people needed more.
Well, I really have a lovely coin purse
Mm-hmm.
that I bought in, I think it was in Cartagena
Mm-hmm.
or Medellin, with folded
Mm-hmm.
money, and
Yeah.
I have some
Yeah.
Venezuelan dollars in there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
made of Venezuelan money. It's
Yeah.
a great coin purse, and
Mm-hmm.
I love it a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's the value of money when the government goes south,
Yeah.
if you will.
So it all kind of comes down to trust, as we said before. I was asking you, do people trust the U.S. government? And
Yeah, they've had no reason not to trust the financial system, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that they do financially. The dollar has been pretty stable and pretty secure. Other parts of the American government
Mm-hmm.
have,
Yeah.
more questioning.
But ultimately, as we've seen with Venezuela, as we've seen with many of these other countries, a currency like that is a trust in the
government.
Yeah. So it's how much you trust the government, and even if, we're Americans. You live in America. I don't live in America, but we are Americans.
Yes.
Americans, Westerners in general, we tend to have pretty good financial system. You were talking about the problems with how slow it is to move money, but aside from the technical limitations of it, the dollar does hold its value relatively well.
Yeah.
There is trust. This is not like Argentina where you can wake up and have your money in the bank gone overnight. We have a pretty trustworthy, at least, financial system.
Credit cards are, used instead of money all the time and very securely, and a lot of access to them.
But so much of the world doesn't have that level.
That's true.
There are a lot. If I think of Americans, maybe some of your friends trying to compare Bitcoin against like the dollar.
Yeah.
And they're going, well, the dollar's better. And again, I don't think they're totally comparable because the dollar is what we call a medium of exchange. it's a good thing to like buy your coffee with, to walk around
Sure.
spending. We're in Tunisia. We're using Tunisian dinars as a medium of exchange.
Right.
We're not. You have not. I don't. As far as I know, you have not moved a substantial portion of your wealth into Tunisian dinars, have you?
No.
So that would be, you're not storing your wealth in Tunisian dinars. We'd call a store of wealth, a store of value, place for like longer term store of value. But a medium of exchange, we're happy to change our dollars into dinars, go buy some aja, some lamb.
Yeah. I think that some of the things that I'd heard about is there are some countries in Africa that that employees or workers are being paid in Bitcoin, and they're very happy to do that because they feel like that is a much more stable currency than the currency that they have in their country.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how well it's gone in El Salvador, where they have turned to Bitcoin as their currency of the country's currency.
Mm-hmm.
But in other places where you could get paid in the local currency or you could get paid in Bitcoin, I think people were very happy to get paid in Bitcoin.
That's interesting. The other side of that is I'm curious how their payments are denominated. It's one thing to be paid in Bitcoin, but are you paid, $100 a week in Bitcoin, or are you paid 0.001 Bitcoin per week? Because then that affects where the volatility comes in. That's what we would call a unit of account. Kind of how are you measuring money? How are you what currency are you using to negotiate your business negotiations? You'll see the US dollar is US dollar fits I think all of these categories: unit of account, store of value, and medium of exchange. People buy things with paper dollars or credit cards. They for so much of the world, the dollar is for whatever we think of the dollar, is a very relatively stable place to put your money compared to Tunisian dinars, Argentine pesos.
Yes.
And people denominate their business dealings in dollars. Their debt, you're negotiating a loan, even if you're in Japan, or especially in a place like Argentina. A lot of times that loan is denominated in dollars, regardless of how you're paying it, whatever.
Right.
The
it's
debt,
that stable currency that they use
just
in dollars.
Yeah, it's just a good value for people to agree for things upon. But yeah, I think to kind of like wrap things up, ultimately, these things, they're all based around trust, right? Do we trust? Do you trust the government issuing a currency? Do you trust do you trust the gold? Can you verify it?
Right.
Do you trust the software, the code that can verify your Bitcoin? So I think for a lot of people, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, they provide a new way of, increasing or removing the need for trust, depending on how you think of it. So that's kind of how I see Bitcoin. That makes sense?
I think it does. I think that the whole system of checks and balances, transparency, and verification is the foundation and the basis for the value and success of Bitcoin.
Cool. And that's pretty much all of crypto, right?
No, there's a whole lot more. That's just kind of the Bitcoin part of it, and the blockchain. Very, very minimal discussion of the blockchain, but
we could probably talk about this for hours, huh?
I think you and I could.
We could. Again, you're incredibly knowledgeable and interested in discussing something that I think is not in your general interest. So thank you for that. And I don't know if people listen to this, if
they want to take part 2.
Well, if people enjoy this conversation, then I would love to chat again about Ethereum, about DeFi, about stable coins, about
smart contracts.
Smart contracts. There's a lot we could discuss. So, but for now, I think we can wrap it there.
Great. You know how to reach me if you want me.
I do know how to reach you, especially for the next few days when I reach you by shouting, "Mom."
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Mom.
You're welcome, David.
Want to go out and explore Tunisia?
Let's go.
Go ride a camel.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.